Hello, I'm Kamal Santamaria. This is Counting the Cost on Al Jazeera, your weekly look at the world of business and economics. This week, diamonds. They've been in the rough for a while, falling demand and rising costs. So will the sparkle return? Diamonds giant De Beers tells us how it plans to bounce back. Plus, we'll look at a new initiative trying to bring clarity to an often opaque industry. Also,
I'm Wayne Hay reporting from Thailand's only gold mine, which is providing valuable employment opportunities for local people. But some say it's poisoning their communities.
And also this week, Turkey, more specifically its national carrier. Just how important is an airline to a country's expansion and development? We ask the CEO of one of the big growth stories in the aviation game, Turkish Airlines. Diamonds are forever, or so the famous advertising slogan goes. But out in the real world, forever is starting to look a little bit shorter these days. The industry's in a downturn. There's lower demand from China, which is the second largest diamond market after the US, and that's been made worse by rising production costs. But you know, it's a big market, and that's where we're going to start this week. Around 130 million carats of diamonds, that is 26,000 kilograms, are produced worldwide every year. There are global reserves of around 600 million carats, which is more than 4 years of production. And these are the big diamond producing countries: Russia, Botswana, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Australia. Why do they do it? Well, to make money, obviously, but there's also the element of pursuit, finding the perfect diamond. And when the colour, cut and clarity all come together, well, this thing happens. I mean, it looks tiny, doesn't it? But that is the world's most expensive diamond, the 12.03 carat Blue Moon, which sold in November last year for $48.4 million. Now, for more than 100 years, the diamond market was controlled by a company called De Beers. It operated as a cartel, controlling about 90% of the market up until the 1980s. And as such, it was able to control the supply to make sure prices stayed strong. Since then, though, its market share has shrunk to around 33%. De Beers is now controlled by the struggling mining giant Anglo American, a company actually planning to sell some of its assets to bring down its estimated $12 billion worth of debt. But that sort of struggle is indicative of the whole sector. 2015 was a bad year for diamonds, and we've got the CEO of De Beers retail arm, Forevermark, with us to explain why. Stephen Lucier is in our London studio. Stephen, why was 2015 so bad on the production side? What was driving that downturn?
Yeah, well, I think despite, as we see, the consumer demand holding up, I think we started off 2015, the industry as a whole, I think with a situation where there was simply too much inventory in the pipeline, particularly in what we call the midstream, and also to some extent at the retail level, particularly in China. And so it was a period of destocking, in effect, of inventory reduction across the pipeline, and that made a difficult environment for the sale of new rough diamonds into the pipeline, particularly in the second half of 2015. But with the consumer demand holding up, with a decent end-of-year season in the main consumer markets, that inventory is cleared, and now there's renewed demand for new rough diamonds to feed the demand that's certainly there through the pipeline and at consumer level.
Okay, so tell me about the demand elsewhere. I believe that the United States is your most important market. It takes up 45%, which is incredible, and that's showing good strength. But where else is important to see strong demand, and are you seeing it?
Yes, I guess the survey data, in addition to America represents about 45% of total global consumption of polished diamonds. So, you know, it's incredibly and disproportionately important to demand. But the second largest market is China, and I think we were pleased to see that growth was maintained in China despite some really difficult overall economic situation in the country, and as one would have seen, you know, many challenges for many in the luxury goods sector, particularly high-end watches and others that have had a very tough time. So, you know, while the rate of growth has slowed, we continue to sell more diamonds in China than we did the year before, and I think that again bodes well for the long term.
Look, this might seem like an odd question, Stephen, but go with me on it, because I talk about the price of oil on this program almost every week now, and I've become convinced that oil affects absolutely everyone and every business. Are you able to say if there's been any negligible effect on your business, the way the oil market has been? Has it affected things positively or negatively?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think that there's certainly a correlation effect here, but not really a causal. Right. So, for example, demand for diamonds and the price of diamonds is largely driven by desire and demand for luxury goods, because we're fundamentally sold in jewelry around the world. So the drivers of demand are quite different from the industrial drivers for oil or other commodities as well. But there's no, debate that clearly there's a connection between overall level of economic growth in the world, particularly in a place like China, and desire and ability to spend on luxury goods like diamonds. So to the degree that the oil price is reflecting weak global economic growth, well, that's going to have an impact on our sector as well. But again, we're very consumer driven. Even in China, the demand is around consumer expenditure that drives the demand for diamonds, where oil is much more connected to the industrial level of GDP growth, like as are other commodity mining products.
So the overall picture I'm getting from you, Stephen, and I think this is true of any business, particularly in the resources sector, it's cyclical. You stick with it, you focus on your core business and the fundamentals of that core business, and then you should be okay through those cycles.
Yes, and I think when we look at the diamond sector, in the long run, there are two key things. That one is the supply, available supply of new diamonds, and we know when we look out to the future that the mines are getting older. The level of new finds has been, in the last 10, 20 years, has been certainly insufficient to replace the existing supply. So, they do look like, as we look out to the future, diamonds will become rarer than they are today. And the other is the demand side, and that's all about consumer expenditure for diamond jewelry. So maintaining that demand in our key markets like the US, while growing in what we see as the long-term growth opportunities, China, India, the Gulf being the three important markets beyond America for us. When we look at ability to grow, then that will be the key in driving demand, and we expect that demand should grow more strongly than the available supply, which I think bodes well for our industry.
Stephen Lucier from De Beers talking diamonds with us. Thank you, Stephen.
Yes, always a pleasure. Look forward to talking to you again in the not too distant future.
So that tells you about the market, but did you know that buying and selling diamonds, in other words, trading them, is incredibly unsophisticated? Our next guest is trying to change that. He is Alan van der Boer, who is the founder of the Singapore Diamond Investment Exchange, which has just opened. Alan, nice to have you with us. I think before you explain to us what you're trying to do with this exchange, I think we have to go back first and explain to our viewers, and in the most simplest possible terms, how diamonds have been traded up until this point.
For 100 years, diamonds have been traded mostly manually. So you have a number of diamond exchanges around the world, including Dubai, which is a very important market, where basically traders converge to a dedicated facility. Dubai will be the Almas Tower. In Mumbai, we call it the Bara Diamond Bourse. Mumbai, you have 70,000 traders walking in every day. So these people go to the marketplace to basically buy, discuss, negotiate, and trade a diamond physically and manually, which means that you have no information at what price the diamonds are being transacted. You have a group of people sitting in one room, you have another group sitting in another room. So there's little, if no transparency at all, in terms of the transacted price of diamonds. And that's the way diamonds have been traded for centuries. It's a major impediment to bring financial market into this industry, not just for the lack of transparency, but also for other reasons I'll be happy to explain to you.
Well, yes, but I wonder if I can stay, though, with this old way of trading just first of all, because the way you've described it, certainly by today's standards, it almost sounds a bit primitive. It's all very one-on-one and very localized instead of global.
It's absolutely true. Number one, Mumbai remains today the main center for one reason. About 80% of the diamonds are polished in India, in Surat actually, which is south of Mumbai. So naturally those polished diamonds surface or float to the market in the Mumbai Bharat Bourse. So you have a lot of people coming from all over the place in the world, from Tel Aviv, from New York. They go and buy the diamonds over there. This is not a marketplace open to people like you and me. It's a wholesale market. And then you put your specs for the stones that you want to find. And once you find them, basically the system will prompt you a little window, and it's going to tell you, basically call Yuval in Tel Aviv with his phone number, or you call Sunil in Mumbai with his phone number, and you have to go offline. So this becomes an OTC, a trade where people will start negotiating based on an indicative price list at what discount they're prepared to trade. And there's no way the actual transaction price is being reported to the market.
Okay then, so I think you better explain to us then what you're doing in Singapore and how this exchange will differ from these old practices and improve them.
So what we have done for the past 2.5 years, we have used exchange technology, which is commonly used by any commodity and stock exchange. So we have a trading engine which is capable of trading live with spot price in full transparency. You see the whole market, it's anonymous, you don't know who the buyers are, who the sellers, but you see all the buy and sell quotes. Number two, we have what we call a depository system. So if you trade in the stock market, you have a central depository which is equivalent to the share register. So our depository system is basically recording all the transactions. At the end of the trading day, will produce statement of all holdings of traders, investors in the market. Now, because we are a spot physical commodity, what does that mean is that the exchange has physical possession of all the baskets of diamonds. We have a third depository, which is a custodian. So the baskets are physically stored in a number of locations around the world in secure vaults, and we have a logistic provider for that. The next thing we have bring together, again by analogy to a stock market, a commodity exchange, we have stockbrokers. That means if you want to trade in the market, you need to trade through a stockbroker, which is licensed by a regulator. Then we have clearing and settlement banks. So it's the entire analogy of people who basically are trading, I would say, coffee beans or oil, even futures, which is something we'll be heading to. Phase one, we are for now in the spot market.
Well, Alan Vanderpoel, sounds very interesting. Best of luck to you. Thanks for your time. And just before we finish with diamonds, remember that one we told you about earlier, $48.5 million paid for the 12-carat Blue Moon diamond. We'll have a look at this one. It is, believe it or not, a 3-billion-year-old diamond, the size of a tennis ball. It is the largest discovered in more than a century, and it could sell for more than $70 million when it goes up for auction next month. The Lesedi La Rona diamond was unearthed in November in Botswana at a mine owned by Canada's Lucara Diamond Corporation. It is 1,109 carats, which makes it the second largest gem-quality rough diamond ever found. And from diamonds, we turn to gold, and the country which could be on the verge of a modern-day gold rush. Believe it or not, it's Thailand, which at the moment only has one operational gold mine. There are hundreds of license applications waiting for approval, as well as plenty of other people unhappy about the potential boom. Wayne Hay has our report.
Gold has always been a hot commodity. Now it's the subject of heated debate. Akara Resources operates the Chatri mine in Thailand's Phichit province. In the last 15 years, it's poured around $2.2 billion worth of gold. As these bars are prepared for refining to separate the gold and silver, the company is nearing a crucial deadline. On May the 13th, one of the key licenses it needs to operate will expire.
We've complied with all the conditions, we've ticked all the boxes, and in our view, we're absolutely compliant with all of the requirements to renew that licence.
But there's an active campaign to pressure the government into not renewing the licence. Protesters also want the government to reconsider proposed changes to the Mineral Act. They say the changes will make it easier for companies to have licenses granted without consulting local people. This is regarded as a low-grade mine. For every tonne of rock that is pulled out of this pit, only 1 gram of gold is extracted. It's still very profitable, of course, but the operators believe there are greater opportunities elsewhere, and they want to expand. Some people are unhappy with that because they say they're being poisoned. Protesters say dangerously high levels of naturally occurring elements are released into the atmosphere during the mining process. The mine employs hundreds of villagers, but some who don't work there say their lives aren't the same anymore.
We used to live together as a community. Neighbors would eat together, rent farmland to work, find food and fish from nearby together. What we used to have has disappeared.
In January last year, the government ordered the mine to close for 30 days because of the complaints. Akara Resources says in that time it answered all the concerns and investigations cleared it of wrongdoing. The Australian company says protesters are only concerned about being paid more to sell their land to the mine.
The issue that we face around this operation is particularly our protesters or protagonists, in our view, are very clearly land speculators. This is all about land, this is all about money. It's not about science and it's not about contamination.
It's estimated there are around 700 tonnes of gold in Thailand. Soon there may be many more mines, but they could also be met with increasing resistance.
And still ahead on counting the cost, a property boom where you might least expect it. We'll take you to Nigeria, where prices are going through the roof just months after the government put down a violent insurgency. Right now, though, a story about the importance of an airline to a country's growth. The Gulf countries all know it. Look at the rates of growth here. And so too does Turkey, or rather, Turkish Airlines. That wasn't a carrier you really heard much about until, say, 5 or 10 years ago. But the expansion and the public awareness in that time has become huge, to the point where, in 2015, Turkish Airlines was reporting record profits of $1.69 billion. In the first quarter of this year, 14.2 million passengers were carried, a 10% increase on the same period last year. And destinations went up to 285. And this is interesting. It actually makes Turkish the 4th largest carrier in the world by number of destinations. Perhaps more impressive, though, is where Turkish Airlines wants to be, and in a pretty short space of time. 2023, which is only 7 years away, is the centenary year of Turkey as a republic. By then, the airline is looking to be carrying 120 million passengers on 500 plus aircraft, pulling in $30 billion in revenue each year. An ambitious goal, given the amount of competition Turkish Airlines has in the region in the form of the big 3 Gulf carriers. Well, who better to talk about all this than the boss? Temel Kotil is the Managing Director and CEO of Turkish Airlines, joining us from Istanbul this week. Mr. Kotil, thank you for your time. I'm very interested in the growth of your airline. It went from a more obscure regional carrier to having big TV ads and big sponsorship deals. Globally yours was the slogan that you used. Was that a strategic decision you took as CEO to say, yeah, we want to play with the big guys now?
Real started 2005 and 2006 we opened the lovely Doha, also the 24 new routes in the Middle East. From that point of our transfer passenger growth, you don't believe it, it's about 30% plus. It's a solid every year, 30% plus every single year in the transfer passengers. Number of passengers from 10 million inshallah this year is budgeted is 72 million. Last year was 62 million, and we're targeting 120 million passengers. As I said, we are baby because number of the destinations we are going today, and the 48 cities in Africa altogether, international, to 136 cities, 37 cities worldwide. This is larger than other networks. We are expecting this number go from 236 to 200 plus international. But the domestic, inshallah, God knows, maybe close to 400. A number of aircraft from 207, inshallah, to 500 plus. So we are still baby.
Yes, but you obviously still want to expand and compete. How do you plan to compete with the big Gulf carriers? You know, we've got 3 major hubs in this region: Doha, Abu Dhabi, Dubai.
Oh.
Are you envisaging Istanbul as a new one of those sorts of hubs?
In airline business, you need to compete. You need to compete yourself. You need to stay awake 24 hours. This is 24 hours, 7 days works. And this is competition. And the best competition is internal. As a CEO of a Turkish Airlines, I didn't go to any fighting with any CEOs in the worldwide. But what we did actually, we opened the routes in the other airlines hub. And we bring our aircraft with a good product, with very cheap products. This is the competition. And we have studies. Of course, Gulf is important area as a hub. But our study is showing that the best place in this earth, the best place in this earth as a hub is in Istanbul. Anybody is from Europe, they want to go Middle East, we are the best option. Anybody from Europe want to go to Africa, we are the best option. Anybody from Europe to go to the Central Asia and Far East, we are the best option. I'm also including the Gulf carriers, of course. We are the best option.
Okay. What about for your country, though? Turkish Airlines' place in Turkey, the economy, because it always seems to me that a country which has a strong airline, or at least has a government which believes in the importance of strong airlines and strong air infrastructure, those countries are in a much stronger position. Now, it's a huge part of their economy. So, yes. To that end, where does Turkish Airlines fit into today's Turkish economy?
10 plus years in Turkish Airlines, I enjoy it. This is service business, You taking the people from their homes and you bring to Istanbul, from Istanbul to bring to other cities, and they do whatever they want as a leisure, the business and the education, so on. They visit their family. That's the loveliest business in this earth. I love this business. This is airline business. You're carrying the people. Of course, because the aircraft is a state of art, high technology equipment, although it's a service business, it's not a simple service business. It's not rocket science, it's just a service business, but because of the complexity of the aircraft and operation, you need to have the elites, you need to have the intellectual employees that can run it. So this makes the airline business, from one aspect, very important to the cities, you linking up, and also your country, you link your country to war. And also it's very important that people, you serving them. And it's very important also, it is not high tech, but it's sophisticated. And this is make the airline business the most important business in this earth.
Temel Kotil, the CEO of Turkish Airlines, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. All the best.
Finally this week, Nigeria, an economy we've talked a lot about, but not usually where real estate is concerned. But property prices are booming in the northeast, where Boko Haram fighters have been forced to retreat. There's a scramble for land and homes in Maiduguri, from where Ahmed Idris now reports on the peace dividend.
Rushing to meet a surging demand for homes. This is now a regular sight in Maiduguri, a city in the middle of a property boom. Developers and landlords all cash in as property value hit an all-time high. At the peak of the Boko Haram crisis, Modumala bought dozens of homes and other property from desperate owners fleeing from the Boko Haram violence.
I made 300 to 500% profits on some of the houses I bought, but others didn't yield as much. This area in particular is hot. Prices will improve or remain steady at least.
From a land speculator, Modu is now trying to get involved in the construction of low-cost houses.
At the height of the crisis, plots of land on this street sold for less than $1,000, and people fleeing from the city had to sell off their houses and land. Now, those plots cost between $8,000 and $10,000.
The presence of 1.5 million displaced persons in the city has helped to push prices up. Abdullahi Kiari sold his house and took his family to safety about 2 years ago. Now, he's back.
At first, we thought the whole city would follow to the fighters. That's why I sold my house and left. I now want my house back, but the current owner is refusing to sell it even at twice the price I sold it to him. I live now in a rented house.
But as demand outstrips supply, soon he may have to pay more than double the asking price. Right now, Maiduguri enjoys the biggest real estate boom in decades as new homes are built across the city.
And that is our show for this week, but there's more for you online at aljazeera.com/CTC. That takes you straight to our page with individual reports, links and entire episodes for you to catch up on. You can also get in touch with us by tweeting me at KamalAJE. Do use the hashtag AJCTC when you do, or just drop us an email. countingthecost@aljazeera.net is the address. So that is it for this edition of Counting the Cost. I'm Kamal Santamaria from the whole team. Thanks for joining us. The news on Al Jazeera is next.